What the heck? Oh! What'd you think? Did you think I wouldn't find out? Oh, I found out. And now it's your turn, Knott's Berry Farm. Let's talk about the soul spin.
Now get ready. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ryan Ride Mechanic channel. How the heck are you doing today? Alright, in today's video, this is a reaction video. Why? Because the soul spin over there at Knott's Berry Farm got stuck. Got stuck for a little bit, a minor inconvenience, almost 2.5 hours. But I'm going to look at the live footage that was recorded actually by ABC 7 News down there. And we're going to go through and highlight some points and figure out what happened and what was done good, what was done bad, and just in general, all about the ride. Okay, so let's talk about it. This is actually built by Mondial, if I got that name right. This is a top scan. So it's kind of a unique ride, but there are other similar rides out there. Basically, the size and capacity is the only thing different between them two. There is a lot of flat rides like this, so the design construction is very similar across them. So we'll just cover some of the basics here. If you're noticing, like, I just switched offices with my wife, so haven't got anything here. I'm honestly trying to figure out what to do. I'm thinking about actually on the wall behind me just painting the whole wall green and just doing everything green screen from here on out. I'm not sure if that's a good idea or not, but my problem is like I like pictures and stuff in the background, but man, with the lights that I need to use, because it's normally pretty dim in here, they produce reflections off of everything. So thinking about just painting the whole wall green and going green screen from here on out. What do you think about that? I don't know. Let's look into it.
1 hour, a little over 1 hour. We count roughly 20 passengers on board this ride here in the center of Fiesta Village. The surrounding attractions have come to a halt. You can see a boom basket has been lifted up to the ride. There is a mechanic on board there. They're trying to get the ride moving once again. Right now there have not been any efforts to rescue individual passengers, and there has not been an emergency response here. The park is handling this internally for now. They feel confident that they can get this ride moving, but you can see folks are growing a little bit impatient, although relatively calm. You can see lots of legs dangling.
You can see lots of legs dangling. What else are your legs going to do on that? I mean, the seats are suspended. Like, what? Am I going to put my legs straight out? Come on. All right, so they went over a couple of things here that I wanted to touch on. One is that they've been stuck for over an hour. I believe total elapsed time on this was just over 2 hours. I believe I said that earlier. But the other thing is that they had declined emergency services, and they're trying to get it down on their own. So we're going to talk about, like, normally with these evacuations where vehicles and units are stuck out of position, the park does not call emergency services typically unless the park needs to. Normally what happens is you could watch a time frame happen. It's like once the ride stops, it's like, okay, 5 minutes, people start complaining in the queue line, hey, what's going on? About 10 minutes into people being stuck in a position like this, people start getting really antsy. Not the people on the ride, it's actually the people in the queue line again. And then the surrounding people, maybe family members that are waiting off the ride for them. Typically at about 15 minutes stuck like this, that's when the people, not the park, that's when the people in the queue line start to call 911 and things like that. The people in the queue line will throw out that the ride's stuck and the park can't get it off before the park ever even has a chance to respond to it. I can't tell you the amount of times that somebody's lift stopped a roller coaster, and on our way out there, we already had calls from emergency services going like, we hear there's a big problem out there. Do you guys need us out there? And we're like, what? No, it's a lift stop. We don't need you out here. Like, go back to doing what you were doing. We're like, we don't need you. Stay there. So the park, emergency services was contacted, and the park said, hey, no, we got this. Don't worry about it. We've got this. So emergency services says, okay, we're going to wait. Let us know if you need any help. Okay. for this particular one, they said they're not trying to get people out of individual seats. When would the park need to escalate to getting people individually out of seats? That would be if that arm was stuck in that position and for some reason they could not move the arm. Like the arm was completely bound up and locked solid. That's when they'd say like, okay, we need to evacuate individuals from those seats. Now, what would happen there? That would be something major like the slewing ring that the entire arm rotates around. If that guy tried to come apart and it mechanically bound and locked itself in one position, that's when they'd be like, okay, we need to evacuate those seats. But so far, there's nothing hair-raising going on here. People, I feel bad for the people that are stuck at an angle because those people are the ones that are like, really, that really sucks. These people, hopefully you can see my mouse. These people right here, they've got it easy. They're just sitting there. It's these people over here in these downward ones, they're just off to the side. Now, if you think about laying on your side, it's like, well, there's not too much bad with that, but it's actually like this guy right here where his legs are hanging over the side. Your legs pinched off like I'm in a roller coaster chair right now, right? If my leg was putting all my weight off to the side right here, my right leg in this case, and his right leg too, is going to fall asleep fast. And if you've ever had a leg fall asleep and you can't really move it much, it is a crappy situation. It's very uncomfortable. So that's what they're going to be up against. Let's continue on. Now you got to remember here, also, you can't flatten that arm down because it's built in that position. So the only way to get this arm down is to rotate the entire arm down. It's like, let's say at the like 10 o'clock or about the 10 o'clock position, 9 o'clock position. The only way to get them down is to rotate that arm back around till that star is at the 6 o'clock or the load position. What they said is that the fire chief is actually on site. So I know in this particular case, the actual fire rescue house is basically kind of like right behind the park. So they have the chief there, which is overseeing this operation. So the park is saying, we're taking the people off. We've got this. Don't worry. But at the same time, that chief is sitting there and saying, like, if he feels that those mechanics doing their job right now are not being competent, or if he feels that the people on that ride are in danger, he has legal authority to pull that job out of their hands and say, you know what, you guys can't do this anymore. It's going to be the fire department now. We're taking this out of your hands. You guys now help us. We worked hand in hand with fire and rescue and people like that. Anytime we had a situation, or if they even wanted to do training on things, we would work hand in hand with them to make sure the relationship was well kept up between there. Also with all the state inspectors that are also going to be looking at this and examining the same exact thing. I've had lots of experience with them too. Hi, Scott and Bobby. Now, if you look here in the center, you can see what they're doing. Maybe I can go back a little bit, see if this works. Oh, right there actually. Okay, right here, there's an eyelet on both sides of this arm, and they're attaching a set of cables or ropes to this. I believe they're cables to this eyelet. Now, if you see, they've got one cable stretched down here, and it's basically attached to a chain pull or come along down there, which is anchored to the concrete pad. From watching this earlier, there's actually these specialized designed anchors in that concrete pad at about 4 or 5 spots around there, specifically to do this. I mean, this isn't something that you normally just think of like, oh, maybe we should put anchors in the concrete pad. The manufacturer probably specified to do this for instances exactly like this. Yeah, see this guy right here? Yeah, this guy is just trying to relax, honestly. He's trying to make it more comfortable because right now it's stuck on his neck and he's leaning over there, and all the upper body weight is pretty much on the hip and the neck, and that gets sore. So he's small enough, he has that ability, so he pulled his arm through the restraint and was able to turn his body sideways, probably much more comfortable like that for him. Like, he's in no danger of coming out of that thing. Okay, we see there's already one cable attached, and they're working on the second cable right now. If we pause that right there, you can see right here, down there next to that hub, right there where my arrow is, there's that other eyelet I was talking about. That's the one to use if that arm, right now the arm's at, let's say, the 9 o'clock position. If the arm was at the 3 o'clock position, they'd be hooking onto that eyelet on the other side. So these eyelets being welded in there and the anchors on the concrete pad, this says that the manufacturer has anticipated the ride stopping like this, and although it's not a great situation or probably even a common situation, it's something that they did anticipate, and they said, look, here's how you do it. And I know the state of California, those guys have already drilled and tested on doing this, and they have to do it in a certain period of time. It's not necessarily a quick time, but they've got to demonstrate that they can get out there and do it. Like, one of the checks for rides like this, we had stuff where we actually had to check this man lift over here, and we had to say that the man lift is operational and it's ready for rescue if needed. If our man lift broke down, we had to rent another one and be there just in case we needed to do something like this. And if we couldn't get a rental man lift in and ours is broken down, the rides that required that man lift to operate, they didn't operate that day. That was rare, but we actually had some late openings for waiting for a rental man lift to arrive from time to time. Now, I'll be skipping ahead on stuff like this just because there's a lot of just circling around. The video is like 45 minutes long. I don't want to put you guys through 45 minutes of that. So I'm just kind of hitting the highlights and stuff. Let's look at this here. See, we now have from that eyelet right there that they were hooking onto at the man lift, we now have one cable straight down to this anchor, almost straight down, and then another cable is being hooked up over here to this one. Now if we pause this right here, you can see this anchor right there. There's another anchor that they've got that special machine hooked up to. It looks kind of like a custom chain pull, not something that you'd find on the shelf. So that's interesting. And then there's another two spots. There's one right over here and there's one right over here. So yeah, the manufacturer definitely intended for this to be done. Okay. While we're going here, let me just talk about the potential failure. Basically, the ride's hydraulic driven. It's got hydraulic motors on it. It's got hydraulic lifting systems on it. I could be wrong, but it looks hydraulic. But typically what happens in something like this is that your rotational motor up here has gone out. Now, if it's hydraulic drive, you could break the hydraulic valves going to it. Or if it's electric, you could burn the thing out. But basically, the rotational drive has stopped, and that arm is now stuck out there. They don't have anything to recover it. That kind of pushes me more towards it is a hydraulic drive system. Hydraulics are typically what's used on these type rides just because they are very strong, powerful, and they fit in small spaces, so they are perfect to use for things like this. When these type of things work, you could see on the other side, let me see if I could forward around to it. So on the other side, here's the gondola here, and then on the other side of the arm right over here, this is a giant stack of steel plate sitting over there. That is the counterweight to this arm, and that counterweight takes the stress off the center rotational motor. But in this case, we're going to say that the motor has broken. I'm pretty sure it's hydraulic, not 100%, but I'm pretty sure it's hydraulic. And then we're going to say that we've lost the valve going to it, like we can't control direction left or right. So this thing is kind of like stuck in there in that position. Maybe the brake is open, maybe it's not, maybe it could free run around the thing. So what they're doing is they're saying, all right, we can't get the arm to move out of this position, which means that the power systems, whether it be hydraulic or electronic, power systems aren't functioning now. So now we're going to have to move it manually, and they're going to have to drag through the brake. Now, the brake might have already been released. That might be one of the first things that somebody did. They climbed up to that center structure right there, and they opened the brake up in the center. So the brake is probably already released, and they're now going to use these chain pulls to start pulling that arm down towards the load position right down here. Now, one of the things that you have when you do this is that those chain pulls are able to pull a lot of force, but just a very short amount of time. So if the arm is more free moving because it is counterweighted and balanced like that, you'll actually get pretty good movement out of that, and then you'll spend more time taking up the slack out of the thing than anything else. Like, you'll move it a little bit and then the whole system goes slack, and it's like, all right, you have to pull the slack back out, tighten it up, and keep going. And that process actually happens kind of fast. So it's like, before you know it, you're like, oh, we got to move mounts now. Then you have to take the whole thing loose and then move the whole mount over to the next location there again. See, they've already moved one chain pull now. They've already released it from that one side, and they're now moving it over to the second anchor. And you can tell this guy over here, he's still working, keeping tension on the whole thing, probably pulling it. And now they're hooking it up to that other anchor point over there. And now this is a very, very stressful situation. When you have to do something like this, not only are you here working on this, trying to get these people off as quickly as possible, but you have everybody, all of management and the entire park is there. You have emergency services there. Everyone's watching you. They had to close that area of the park off. There's barricades in place preventing people from going in there. The family's getting upset for those members that are on the ride. And then you have a news helicopter that will not go away, putting an unbelievable amount of stress on you at that point. So it's just like, oh my gosh, it is not an ideal situation. Okay, so these guys have started pulling. They're pulling on the second anchor point down there. And, oh, do you see that? That tagline, that first anchor point is now completely slack. Now this guy over here is not helping pulling because it's completely slack at that point. So the movement of the arm is getting more. That means the arm is not under much stress right now. So nothing mechanically broke inside the arm to where it hung it in that position. It is like a drive failure. The drive has stopped, and it just stopped the arm in that position where they could not simply just restart it. They probably went into an emergency mode or something and tried to move it, and it wouldn't move, which probably means the main drive motor, whatever drives that thing, is probably broken. So we'll fast forward a little bit on this, and you can tell that the arm has moved. It's now further down than it was before. It was at like the 10 o'clock position before, and now it's close to the 8 o'clock position. So it's moving down closer to home. Again, it's got to get to 6 o'clock or straight down for it to be unloaded. And you could see they keep having this go slack, and they keep having to move it. Oh yeah, that is definitely a custom pull device from the manufacturer. So, yeah. The manufacturers sometimes make custom stuff. I know on our Starflyer, they gave us this custom tool that we never used. At least before I left, we had never used it. And it is in case everything's seized up and the drum to move the star up and down the tower from Funtime, and that guy's seized up. And this was a hydraulic device to hook on, and it grabbed the cable and just pulled the star back down. It just brute force at ignorance, just pulled the thing straight back down. But that was one of those things they said, hey, if you ever have to use that, obviously you're going to have parts to replace afterwards, but all the cables had to be replaced because you couldn't put that stress on the cables and then reuse them afterwards.
Not been an emergency response. Knott's Berry Farm handling the situation internally as they try to get this ride moving once again.
Absolutely. So you hear it there. They still have not called for emergency services. So Knott's Berry Farm is officially saying, yes, this is still in our procedures. We know how to do this. They've probably practiced it many times before. And they said, we know how to do this. We've got it under control. There's nothing so far out of the ordinary. We need emergency services. We've got this. If the sun goes down too far and it was dark, they have light towers. Most every park has a set of light towers they bring up and they set up, make the whole thing look like daylight again. Went forward about another 5 minutes or so, and you could see that the arm is down even further than it was before. There's accelerator and hang time. You see the rest of the park is still operating. This is the fire and rescue station. You can see how close it is to the park. It's just right there. So if they wanted fire and rescue to come over, they'd be like, yep, we're on our way. They're back down there. See, they've got that back down to about the 7 o'clock, or no, it's about 7:30. It's slowly coming down. They're getting it. Now, see, one of the things I don't like about this situation is that these cables are draped really close to the gondolas, the arms, the fingers, where people are sitting. And I don't like being around when cables are under tension. Of course, I don't know the tension that they're putting on these things. If that's like a 3/8 steel cable, it looks like they're putting a lot of tension on it, but it doesn't look like it's too much to the point where I'd be worried about snapping the cable. Snapping the cable in that scenario is the exact reason why you can't just hook it up to that man lift right there and just say, hook it on the back and I'll just drive it that way and we'll just pull the thing down, because you can't gauge the tension on the cable. And then if that thing does snap, you're not going to hurt the man lift, but that cable is going to recoil at those 20 people. You don't want to do that. So everything has to be very carefully done by hand. It looks like they've pretty much got it down now to the load position. Let's see, are the cables still on it? Yep, cables are still on it. Yeah, that looks like it's the 6 o'clock position. Of course, once it gets close to the very bottom or the very top, the movement becomes really easy because that counterweight starts to get out of the picture. They still have to lower the ride now. Passing by the way, Silver Bullet, you got a bit of an oil leak right here. Check that out. Some silicone RTV up there and seal that guy up pretty good. Keep all that grease on the chain. Okay, everything's slack there. That's good. They're not trying to pull it, so it must be in position. And it looks like the guy's ready to bring him down there. Again, unless there's a problem with the people and fire and rescue feel that those people are in danger, they are just going to let Knott's Berry Farm do what they need to do and what they're trained to do to get those people off the ride. This is still all just normal stuff. It sucks it's taking a long time, but this has obviously been drilled and it's part of the procedures. So it sucks it takes a long time, but this is still normal. Oh, are they going for it? There it is. It's dropping down. It's returning back to its home position. They're able to turn it on, probably put it in manual mode, and lower the main arm down. And then once it's down and in its load position, it would just be a simple unlock command, and people's feet must feel so good after this. They're like, oh, thank you. All right, going around, engaging the arms, getting ready to open the seats. It's like the amount of hydraulic fluid that's on the ground. It's like, yeah, this is a hydraulic drive system. You could see the big hydraulic rams right here that are extended up. If you go back just a couple of minutes, you could see that this ladder was actually down here. It was all one solid piece. Now it's down there. And then that's that big geared slewing ring that allows the rotation of the arm all the way around there. So inside, you have a hydraulic motor inside there that's spinning the inside of that slewing ring. It's a geared slewing ring. So the ring is really big. It's got teeth on the inside, and you have a little tiny pinion that sits inside there and spins it. Hydraulics are great for this sort of stuff because they fit in really tight spaces, and you could fit in a space like that. That looks big, but it's actually not. That all that stuff in there to do that is actually very close together. So, and then on the ground, hydraulic fluid. Hey, look at that. Yay. People are out. Oh my gosh. Look at everyone start to walk. I would be that way too. I'd be like, oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh man, you imagine being stuck on the ride for 2 hours? I mean, you wouldn't walk straight either. You'd be walking all sorts of funny. And there is some people, there's this person right here, I believe. See that hobbling? Those people were some of the ones that were stuck at that almost vertical where their legs were hanging off to the side. And that is not going to be nice on their body. They won't really have any problems. They'll recover just fine. But imagine like a leg that's fallen asleep, but times two, and just for 2 hours. I mean, it's going to be rough for that person for the next half an hour or so. It's going to be a hard one. Now, my luck for this whole thing is that I would have had to pee about 10 minutes into it. I'm sure that they're getting the Dippin' Dots vouchers ready for these people. And no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No one gets Dippin' Dots. That's not a thing. It's not a thing at all. They can get funnel cakes. They can get free admission back into the park. Season passes, whatever. But obviously for legal reasons, what they'll do is they'll take all these people that were on there and they'll probably get their name, phone number. If they need to ask questions of them at the time, they will. But they will keep their contact information handy. That way they could reach out and probably compensate him in some way. So, hey, sorry you were stuck on the ride for so long. Let's do something. But realistically, this was simply just a breakdown. It sucks that it took so long, but there was nothing out of the ordinary. There was nothing crazy that happened here. The people at Knott's Berry Farm did exactly what they were supposed to. They went out there, they addressed the situation, they got the man lift out there quickly, they got the cables out there, all the equipment was in good working condition, and they got the thing recovered as fast as they possibly could. Could they have done it faster? I don't know, but this is one of those things. It's like, it is what it is. Some of those things just take a lot of time. When we had power outage and our Star Flyer, the Star was all the way up at the top of the thing, that took us a good 45 minutes to almost an hour, depending on the weight. It took us a good 45 minutes to an hour to get that all the way from the top to the bottom, and there was nothing we could really do to speed that up. It just is what it is. Good job to the folks over there at Knott's Berry Farm. It looks like the training and practicing that I'm sure they did paid off well. Now, these rides are obviously built to be recovered. That's not a big deal. So typically when you get into something like this, it's like, okay, again, I'm really sure that it's a hydraulic drive system on there. So you get out there, and obviously at the end you saw the ride was able to put the star or the star assembly back down at the very end. So the hydraulics were working, but the drive wasn't, which probably means that the motor or the valving to the motor has broken and they couldn't get it to move after that. So it's one of those things that emergency procedures are in place for just the ride stopping out of position. It's typically a mode or an extra pump or a generator or something you have to start to bring the ride back down and get it back unloaded. But then that emergency thing didn't work either, which is kind of common. If you say, okay, power outage, that arm is stuck out of position, what do we do? It's like you start the emergency generator up, that fires up the hydraulics, and then you rotate the arm back down to position, lower it, let the gas off. Cool. So the same thing, it's like the arm stopped, what do we do? It's like, okay, switch into manual, does it lower? No. It's like, what else do we do? It's like, well, start up the emergency generator. Does it move? No. It's like, crap. That's because that motor shelled out up top. It broke. It did something. So it's like, okay, now what do you do? It's like, well, guess what? There's an eyelet on the side of the gondola, and then we have some big old cables and some poles and stuff like that, and there's some anchors on the ground. Now you got to go out there and you have to get that thing down now. It's like, really? That's what we have to do? It's like, yeah, That's what you have to do. Get the man lift, get some people out there, call up security. We have to cordon off that area of the park because now we have to drive a man lift through the park to get there. And now you got to go there and start that whole process. And I'm sure down there in Southern California, the people who take care of the state stuff, which is OSHA, it's a division of OSHA actually. Bobby, who's in charge of that area down there, I'm sure they have already gone through this drill and they have practiced it before. Knott's Berry Farm made it into the news a handful of years ago, it was a long time ago, for their Windseeker attraction. That was the same thing. It was stuck way up there and they couldn't get it down. And that was like a 3-hour unload for that while they were fumbling around with everything trying to get it done. After that, the state really cracked down on everybody and said, you guys need to make sure that, you have evacuation procedures for all your rides. If you say, well, how are you going to get it down from the top, or how are you going to unload it from the top? And they say, well, we'll use a man lift to get up there. They said, you need to demonstrate that the man lift can actually get up there and do it. Our big Fun Time Star Flyer, we had a man lift, and we said if it's stuck all the way at the top, we can get a man lift to the bottom of the swings and actually get people off of those swings right there. And the state stood there and said, prove it. It's like, okay. And that Northern California was like, Scott, Scott, do we really have to prove this? And it's like, yep, you have to make the inspector that'll be on site, you have to make him happy that you can get that off in the event everything else fails. I was like, all right. So we had to go through the whole process and do it. We had to have cranes on site sometimes for equipment that could have gotten stuck up high. Had to have man lifts working. It's quite a big ordeal to keep all your evacuation equipment ready to go. Knott's Berry Farm really did a good job with it, so good job that entire crew out there. There was nothing that I saw today that I would have improved upon, just off of my personal experience. There was nothing where I was like, oh yeah, they were wasting time doing something. The big thing in those events is that those custom chain pulls, those things that they were using to pull the cables in and bring the arm down, sometimes those things aren't kept in the best condition because they're rarely ever used, but those look like they were in good condition. So that was good. All the equipment functioned properly. No one was stuck upside down. Those arms that you sit on that are on that star assembly, they're free spinning, just they're off-centered, so the lowest point is always down. So you could get one stuck upside down just off of a rare freak chance, but you could also just sit there in the seats and kind of like wiggle your way back and forth, and then it will flip back up to the right direction. So you'll be able to sit there for the rest of the time. When these things pop up on the news, the big problem that the news focuses on, and that's even like the news is focused on with this particular one as well, which is the time it takes to get people off of there. And you can't fault them for that. You can't fault anybody for that, because it's like no one wants to be stuck on a ride for approximately 2 hours. Nobody wants that. I don't want that. No one wants that. So yes, they're going to dig into the time a little bit. But honestly, the Channel 7 news that was there, everything they were saying was calm. They weren't worried about the people being in danger. They were there simply reporting the facts. And in my mind, it's the news media that can really over-exaggerate situations and make things way worse than they are. I've had that lots of times. So actually, my hat's off also to the crew out there at Channel 7, because they did really good reporting. They kept everybody just up to date on the facts. It's the simple facts. Here it is. This is what's going on. This is what they're doing. They even added commentary, which was perfectly fine. Hey, it really looks like they've said it before on that video. They said, hey, it looks like they know what they're doing. It looks like this is proceduralized, like they've done it before. And it was. Like, the news isn't there to train with those guys. They don't know that. I know that. They don't. But the news media can make things so much more worse. And in this case, they didn't, which is great. Then it files into the secondary news sources, which is actually like YouTube. It's, you come here and you start seeing videos like mine pop up. It's like, oh, this and that and that. And it's like, I could just put a thumbnail up for this video and just say, yeah, I made a video on this. And a lot of my subscribers will be like, oh, what's Ryan have to say about this? Let's hear about it. And they'll come and watch my video. But if I want a much bigger base and it's a current event, like this thing is starting to blow up, then you can make a thumbnail that's really clickbaity, right? And you could put down, ride stuck, disastrous, people, bodies scattered everywhere, nothing but bones and blood all over the place. And you'll get more views on that video, I guarantee it. But it doesn't portray it in a good light. So I don't really like doing stuff like that. I've done it before. I have done it before, but I don't really like to do it because it's kind of playing into the negative side of things that honestly most of us that watch channels like this and try to keep things open, honest, and moving straight forward, we don't really like to get into that stuff either, because it's just like, yeah, leave that alone. Don't do that. Don't give in. Don't be like that person. All right. I'm going to call it a day on this video. Good job with everyone involved. I think that went well, just a little long, and that's not really a big deal. That's how long the process takes. So, good job. If you want to, you can comment down below, like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want to email me, you can always email me at ryantheridermechanic@yahoo.com. Pretty responsive there. Thanks for everyone who popped up on the email and comments and everything else and says, hey, Knott's Berry Farm, Top Scan, Soul Spin, what are you going to do? It's like, yeah, I'll talk about it. So thanks for everyone who wanted to hear me talk about it. All right. And as always, stay off the air gates.